Tonight, kidnapped and killed 4 Americans caught up in a shocking act of cartel violence. 2 of the victims confirmed dead days after the group was held up at gunpoint and forced into the back of a truck. Part of the brutal kidnapping captured here on camera. Tonight, the 2 survivors returning to the U.S., a motorcade driving them over the border. They apparently crossed into Mexico seeking a cosmetic procedure. Tonight, we take a closer look at the growing business of medical tourism and the growing dangers patients can encounter when looking for a deal south of the border. Also in Mexico tonight, the troubling discovery inside of a freight truck. 340 migrants packed inside, nearly a third of them unaccompanied minors. The incident part of the record surge in migration, leading President Biden to reconsider his policy on detaining migrant families, what sources are telling NBC News about what could be a major reversal. Terror in the air, disturbing new video emerging from an incident we told you about last night. A passenger threatening to kill every man on board his flight to Boston before stabbing a flight attendant. The Emergency Safety Summit now scheduled for next week. The DeSantis roadmap. The Florida governor dubbing his state a blueprint for the nation in his annual address, doubling down on culture war issues at the center of conservative politics. The line of attack former President Trump is trying to use against the Florida governor. Tonight, we take a closer look at why Trump's attack may not stick. Fab and fraud, how one influencer used COVID relief funds to build a luxury lifestyle for herself, posing with a Rolls Royce and designer handbags, and why she's now facing up to 60 years in prison. Plus, crashing the podcast, the dramatic moment a car slams into a coffee shop right in the middle of a podcast recording. And could a robot be coming for your job? The new study from Princeton University that names the top 20 occupations at risk of being replaced by AI technology. Did yours make the list? Top story starts right now. And good evening. We begin Top Story tonight with that shocking story out of Mexico. A group of Americans caught in the crosshairs of cartel violence just over the U.S. border. 4 of them kidnapped, and tonight, 2 of them have been returned alive. The other 2 tragically found dead. This, of course, the video that stunned the nation. You can see the men in bulletproof vests, right? Loading one woman into the back of a truck, others being dragged along the ground. And I want to show you exactly where this all happened. This horror unfolding in the border state of Tamaulipas, one of the 6 locations in Mexico that the U.S. State Department has classified as a do-not-travel zone due to the likelihood of life-threatening risks. And if we come in closer, you can see that the city of Matamoros, right over here where the kidnapping took place, right in that red danger zone near the border. And the location, though, despite all the risks, make it a popular spot for some Americans looking to cross into Mexico for cheaper medication or medical procedures. And you can see why. Look how close this is to Brownsville, Texas, just 2.5 miles by car. This line right here, the path those 4 Americans took just to get in when they traveled. And today, it's the same path the 2 survivors were brought back on. You can see the motorcade with ambulances and military vehicles crossing the international bridge. The mother of Latavia Washington McGee telling NBC News her daughter was one of the 2 survivors. Law enforcement tonight telling us she had gone to Mexico for a medical procedure. Gabe Gutierrez is in her hometown of Lake City, South Carolina tonight and leads us off.
Tonight, the 2 Americans who survived the brazen kidnapping are back on U.S. soil after a harrowing few days. Latavia Washington McGee, seen here today in an ambulance, is among the survivors. Her mother, who spoke with her directly, tells NBC News. The violent abduction caught on camera. The victims dragged onto this white pickup truck. The FBI says gunmen had opened fire on the group shortly after they'd crossed the Texas border into Matamoros, Mexico. Today, authorities confirmed 2 of the Americans had been killed.
We extend our deepest condolences to the family and loved ones of the deceased.
McGee was joined by her cousin, Shahid Woodard, and friends Zindell Brown and Eric James Williams on the days-long trip from their homes in South Carolina to Mexico, for what a law enforcement official familiar with the matter says was a cosmetic medical procedure. Mexican authorities say Williams also survived, but was shot in the leg. We spoke with his wife, Michelle, today by phone.
I didn't know anything until Sunday morning when the FBI came. Everything just seemed so surreal to me.
She says she spoke with her husband for a few minutes today before he went into surgery.
I am very happy happy that he's alive, but I'm also heartbroken for the other families who can't say the same.
She says the four were childhood friends, taking the trip together to share driving responsibilities. So-called medical tourism is on the rise. Pre-pandemic, an estimated 1.2 million Americans traveled to Mexico each year for elective medical treatment, mostly cosmetic procedures and complex dentistry. But Matamoros is in the Mexican state of Tamaulipas, which the State Department classifies as Level 4 Do Not Travel. Violence there has intensified among warring factions of the notorious Gulf cartel. Today, the governor of Tamaulipas said one person who was guarding the kidnapping victims was arrested. They were found in a wooden house in Matamoros, and over the past 3 days, investigators say they've been moved to several locations, including a medical clinic, to create confusion.
The cartels are responsible for the deaths of Americans, and we are fighting as hard as possible. The DEA and the FBI are doing everything possible.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez joins us now from the victim's hometown there in South Carolina. I guess, Gabe, the big question still is why? Have authorities shared any details on the moments leading up to the kidnapping?
Well, Tom, a law enforcement source with knowledge of the matter says that the evidence suggests that the group of Americans was targeted mistakenly right after they got over the border. And the source says one theory is that the cartel gunmen may have believed that the group was Haitian smugglers encroaching on their turf, Tom.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez with the sad developments there out of South Carolina with those family members. Gabe, we appreciate it. For more on the kidnapping and the ongoing violence in Mexico, we're joined now by retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer. Jennifer, thanks for joining Top Story tonight. There's really two parts of this story, right? There's these Americans crossing the border into Matamoros, which, you know, not too long ago was an area where a lot of Mexicans could live peacefully. They would cross over into Brownsville, Texas. People could go to school. They could work across the border, and it was safe. Not the situation anymore. And then you have this case of obviously medical tourism, which is a separate factor. Talk to us about how these cartels are operating and why things have gotten so violent, as we pointed out, just 2 miles from our border.
It's become so violent at this point because the Gulf cartel has lost their leadership, which means the members of that group are fighting for control, and that is causing this excess of cartel violence and destabilization in the region. In addition, you have the Zetas, who are also very violent and also fighting with the Gulf cartel for territory.
You know, we're approaching spring break season, a time when U.S. college students generally flock to south of the border. But as of right now, 6 states within Mexico have level 4 State Department do not travel warnings, which people can always check on the State Department website. You can see them right here. What is your advice to people traveling to Mexico right now? I mean, there's obviously certain sections of Mexico that are very safe for tourists. But there's situations like this where things can turn very dangerous very quickly.
Well, certainly they should heed the State Department's warnings. If they're very specific, they point out the areas that it's just not safe. We know by this example that a tourist can come there and be mistaken and be held for ransom, taken hostage violently. It's something that has to be taken into account when you're making a decision. Those safe areas, if you're going to go there on vacation, you need to register with the State Department in their STEP program. You need to stay at your resort. You need to make sure that you travel only by resort connected travel. You need to be not outside at night and just be very aware, because there's a lot of violence going on right now in Mexico.
Finally, Jennifer, I don't know if you have any area of expertise on this, but a lot of viewers are going to be watching this, wondering about this medical tourism and heading to different countries, because there are countries all over Latin America that are offering all types of health care at a much cheaper cost, whether it be dental care to plastic surgery to what we saw over here, another cosmetic procedure. What is the FBI's advice to Americans who are traveling, doing things like this?
Well, if you look at the numbers, between 800,000 and 1 million Americans are going to Mexico for various medical procedures, for medicine. And this is just the most vulnerable section of individuals coming from the United States, because they're not going to a resort. They are traveling the highways and byways. They're going with other people. They're in vans. They're transporting themselves in areas that are cartel controlled. And so I would say this is the most dangerous places that they would be visiting. And highly recommend they not go.
All right, Jennifer Coffin-Daffer, we thank you. Okay, tonight here on Top Story, we're also following another development out of Mexico. More than 340 migrants, including more than 100 unaccompanied minors, mainly from Central America, found in an abandoned freight truck. The discovery made on a highway in the Gulf Coast state of Veracruz, a route that's often used by smugglers. The new video shows authorities opening that freight container to find migrants packed inside. The group then climbed out one by one. Telemundo anchor Aranza Loizaga joins us now with the details. Aranza, these images they're so hard to look at, right? Almost 100 unaccompanied children. What do we know so far about this case?
Hi, Tom. Just like you said, very difficult to be able to process. About 103 minors, unaccompanied minors, and, the rest of the adults were inside of this trailer that was found abandoned on the side of a road in Veracruz. What we know so far is that the driver just fled the scene, and the Mexican authorities were saying that inside of the trailer, what we know so far is that they had ventilation ports on the roof. They also had fans, and the migrants were wearing some sort of bracelet, color-coded, indicating that they were potential clients from the cartels or the smugglers as well. We understand that the family units that were inside of that trailer, as well as the unaccompanied minors, are right now under the care of the Department of Family and Child Services, whereas the adults will be processed according to the law to be able to define their future in that country. This is a scene that we're very familiar with because this is not the first time that it happens. And this is the first large group of unaccompanied minors that were found together, 103 of them. We understand that earlier this year, around January, there were about 50 kids from Guatemala found along the U.S.-Mexico border, and about 20 of them, but in the southern border between Chiapas and Guatemala.
And when you see the pictures of the children coming out of the tractor trailer, right, you may talk about the wristbands. So you think in sense, oh, these cartels are sophisticated, but they really are not, right? They treat these people like animals, like products, just packing them into these tractor trailers. And we have seen those cases along the border where people die in these tractor trailers because there's not enough oxygen.
No, that is right. I mean, do you remember what happened in San Antonio, Texas? Out of 85 migrants that were confined inside of one of these trailer trucks, 53 of them died. And it was a horrible death because they were abandoned. The temperatures were about 105 degrees. They had no water, no ventilation. It was completely dark, and people had just the worst nightmare right there, dying and listening to other family members and friends dying as well. This is a tragedy, Tom, and Mexican authorities are very worried about it. The problem is that they don't know how to deal with the situation. We understand that they have more National Guard elements, soldiers, in the southern border between Chiapas and Guatemala, trying to stop the caravans or dissolve them before they enter into the Mexican territory. They're also giving some working visas to some of them, but they say as long as there are no opportunities in the Latin American countries, violence, corruption, and crime, families will try to seek for a better future for themselves and their children.
Telemundo's Aranza Loizaga for us tonight. Aranza, we appreciate that. Discoveries like that only adding more pressure to the White House and their response to the ongoing immigration crisis. Tonight, President Biden is considering restarting a controversial policy to detain families at the border. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Kristen Welker joins us now from Washington. Kristen, this is pretty controversial considering what the president ran on and all the flack that former President Trump got about this from Democrats.
Tom, that's absolutely right. And people familiar with the matter do tell NBC News that the Biden administration is considering detaining migrant families entering the U.S. illegally. Now, it comes as the administration prepares for that public health policy known as Title 42 to be lifted, and what's widely expected to be a surge in migrants once that happens. The issue of family detentions, as you point out, is a political lightning rod. And remember, candidate Biden campaigned against such detentions and got rid of the practice soon after taking office. The possible reversal comes after a record number of illegal border crossings. I spoke with a member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus today who urged the president not to bring back family detentions, calling them harmful to families and children. But so far, Tom, there's no final decision.
Kristen, welcome for us at the White House. Now to that in-flight emergency we told you about last night when a passenger allegedly threatened to kill other people on board, then stabbed a male flight attendant before other passengers took him down. It comes as the FAA is preparing for a national aviation safety summit to drill down on safety in cockpits and control towers following a string of close calls. Here's NBC's Tom Costello.
United Flight 2609 was just 45 minutes from landing in Boston.
I will kill every man on this plane.
When prosecutors say 32-year-old Francisco Torres went on an incoherent rant after trying to open one of the plane's emergency exits.
Since I'm taking over this plane.
Then rushing and stabbing a flight attendant with a spoon he'd broken in the lavatory. Fellow passengers quickly tackled and subdued him.
So there was like 4 to 6 guys, on him on the ground.
Torres now facing federal charges and up to life in prison if convicted. The latest mid-air incident to put travelers on edge. Meanwhile, the NTSB says it's investigating yet another runway close call. This one in Sarasota, when controllers cleared an Air Canada Rouge flight to depart from the same runway that an American flight was about to land on, forcing the American crew to abort. The 6th runway close call just this year. So many close calls. The former captain on the Miracle on the Hudson flight, Captain Sully Sullenberger, tells the Today Show this is getting very serious.
They are the canaries in the coal mine, and they should concern us.
Now, 14 years after the last fatal crash involving a major U.S. airliner, the acting FAA chief has called an aviation safety summit for next week. The question, has complacency become a problem in cockpits and control towers?
I want specific ideas about how to enhance our already robust safety net with concrete actions.
Right now, aviation is back to pre-pandemic levels. Flights are full and airports are full of planes on runways. The question is whether that in any way has been contributing to these problems we've seen with runway incursions. Is the margin of safety right now getting a little too tight? And does the airline industry, does the FAA need to maybe lighten it up a little bit, not so busy, not so tight, not so tightly scheduled on the nation's runways and in its airports? Tom, back to you.
Okay, Tom, thank you for that. We have some late-breaking news tonight on the Dominion lawsuit against Fox News. New documents just unsealed, including private Fox News text messages, testimony, and emails that show hosts panicked about ratings after then-President Trump refused to acknowledge defeat in the 2020 election and give more insight into how executives allowed baseless conspiracy theories to get on the air. NBC News senior political reporter Jane Tim joins us now to break down what all this means. Jane, I know you've been going through all of these documents right now, so kind of give us an overview on the new information we have tonight.
This is the widest picture yet we've seen of what was going on at Fox News behind the scenes. These editorial conversations that people like you and me have every day, just sort of inside, days after the election, saying, is there evidence that the election was stolen? The election fraud claims that are being pushed around. Is it evidence? Is there evidence behind it? And then being like, well, it's not really evidence that the election could have been changed. Really, from the beginning, a strong, clear awareness that we see from people that these claims were false, but a desire to keep fostering and talking about it because it was appeasing their viewers and keeping those ratings up. Definitely a lot of worries about those ratings. Some of these things are quite stunning. You see Rupert Murdoch, chair of Fox Corporation, saying, maybe the hosts went a little too far, musing on January 5th about whether they could have a strong condemnation of the stolen election lie, whether they should say, you know what, Joe Biden won and we're disappointed. These primetime hosts he was talking about, musing about this. January 5th, hours later, a mob storming the Capitol. And then later having to say, we're pivoting fast, we're moving away from this, as they did. And their own sort of internal conflict. There was even messages back and forth at one point about trying to get the news division under control when one of their own reporters fact-checked the president and said, you know what, these claims aren't true.
Talking about President Trump at the time.
Yes.
And then also there were Republican senators already in a report that were giving pressure to Rupert Murdoch to essentially report the truth, right, about the election being stolen.
Yeah, the behind the scenes here is stunning. You even see Paul Ryan, former House Speaker, texting, being like, guys, is it ready to move? We're ready to move. Trying to sort of push Lachlan Murdoch and Rupert Murdoch away from this, trying to pull them back from, what they called the edge. You know what I mean? There were sort of Fox News executives saying, we're going to go over the cliff if we keep doing this.
Two quick questions. Will we have a decision soon on this case, and how will this new information affect the lawsuit, do we think?
So we're hurtling towards a jury trial that would start next month, April, I think, 17th. This is sort of the biggest chunk of evidence we've seen so far. So what you're seeing here is what's really going to forward the case. I was listening to the judge this morning on an open status hearing, and he was saying, we're not going to have any surprise surprise witnesses and surprise evidence here. This is the meat of this case.
Jane Tim, thanks so much for joining Top Story tonight. Now we turn to Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis delivered his State of the State today, but many feel it is a blueprint for a potential run for the presidency. Our Ali Vitale has more on his platform that includes his stand on the culture wars.
Governor Ron DeSantis touting Florida as an American blueprint.
Florida is #1, and working together, we will ensure that Florida remains the #1 state in these United States.
Kicking off the start of a new legislative session there that's just as much about policies in the Sunshine State as it is about a national roadmap for Republicans.
Florida is the fastest growing state in the nation. We rank #1 for net in-migration. We rank #1 in the nation for new business formations. Florida has more people employed today than before the pandemic. We are #1 in law enforcement recruitment and support. Florida's crime rate stands at a 50-year low.
It echoes DeSantis' new book, released last week, that seeks to establish Florida under his stewardship as an incubator for conservative policies and culture wars. From classrooms,
we've expanded school choice, and we have protected the rights of parents.
To anti-COVID vaccine mandates.
Stop with this COVID theater. So if you want to wear it, fine, but this is ridiculous.
We defied the experts. We bucked the elites. We ignored the chatter. We did it our way, the Florida way.
DeSantis also taking aim at President Biden's immigration policies.
We have fought against illegal immigration in the state of Florida, from banning sanctuary cities to suing the Biden administration over its catch and release policies, to transporting illegal aliens to sanctuary jurisdictions.
And railing against gender-affirming care.
And it's sad that we have to say this, but our children are not guinea pigs for science experimentation, and we cannot allow people to make money off mutilating them.
All key DeSantis priorities, and all sure to dominate the next 18 months of presidential politics on the right, as DeSantis is widely seen as the top rival to former President Donald Trump. But critics, even those in his own party, say he may be playing too much to the extremes.
Today was certainly a red meat speech, and this red meat is awful conservative. I think he's probably going too far to the right, and more than he would probably need to right now for a general election, because frankly, to have a racist, anti-gay, gun-toting, anti-abortion agenda really isn't going to play well when it comes to independent suburban women.
Still, the start of the GOP majority session is a stark reminder of why sources close to DeSantis vow he's focused first on his current job before he sets his sights on his next one. Not that it stops him from teasing what's ahead.
Don't worry about the chattering class. Ignore all the background noise. Keep the compass set to true north. We will stand strong. We will hold the line. We won't back down. And I can promise you this, you ain't seen nothing yet. Thank you all. God bless you.
All right, Ali Vitale joins us now. Ali, DeSantis is really taking conservative positions along the same path as former President Trump in some cases, if not more extreme. How big an issue could this be down the road?
Yeah, look, Tom, while many of these candidates are going to try to find ways to moderate either in style or potentially on policy and substance around Trump, DeSantis is taking a completely different tack. He's running to the right of the former president on a lot of these issues, especially because when you look at it, a lot of the red meat that DeSantis and other Republicans throw at the base is theoretical. It's something that will ignite them and fire them up. But DeSantis can actually point to legislating and making tangible policy moves around a lot of this red meat. That means that there's actual policy to attach to his names. For reporters like us, it makes it really easy to see the things that a would-be President DeSantis might push for, especially as he uses Florida as a blueprint. But it also makes it a lot harder, if he wins the nomination, to pivot towards the middle, which all these candidates do once they hit a general election. It's getting ahead of ourselves, but certainly it's something that I've heard from Republican strategists who are watching the way that this Republican primary field is already forming, how they're already contrasting with each other, and wondering, how does that work if you get past the primary and actually into a general?
And Ali, we're still early, but we are getting close to that point where candidates have to start to get serious about a primary campaign before it gets too late. A lot of people think Governor DeSantis is going to throw his hat into the ring, but we've already seen what former President Donald Trump is going to attack him on, and it may be hard for DeSantis to defend some of the positions he held when he was a congressman, including on Social Security, including on Medicare.
Yeah, those are pivot points that Trump is certainly trying to point to, because for DeSantis, as much as he's trying to run on Florida as a blueprint, he also has a record, albeit a somewhat short one, from his time in Congress. So certainly, as there's a focus right now on entitlement spending, on programs like Social Security and Medicare, Trump is trying to draw people's attention to DeSantis's previous voting record on that issue. I will say, as I've been looking at the ways that other Republicans are talking about these issues, specifically former Vice President Mike Pence said to me, and has said in recent interviews as well, that he thinks that these programs have to be dealt with in a more serious fashion because there are issues with solvency with them. It could be that DeSantis then takes that attack and tries to parry it from Trump that way, saying, hey, look, I did take these votes because I want to be serious about the way that we keep these programs solvent, especially in a state like Florida that has a large 65 and up population. That's one of the things that he could be preparing for. But look, for DeSantis in the short term, Tom, he wants to focus on Florida's legislative session, and that's going to be most of the spring.
All right, Ali Vitale for us tonight. Ali, thank you. Still ahead tonight, the emotional plea from the wife of actor Bruce Willis. Her message to the paparazzi that have been hounding her husband as he deals with a devastating dementia diagnosis. Plus, fab and fraud, how one influencer scammed the COVID relief program to pocket more than $1 million and the prison time she could now be facing. And from Boy Meets World to the political world, the major announcement from former child star Ben Savage about a new campaign. Stay with us. Top story just getting started on this Tuesday night. We're back now with the story of how an influencer became an identity thief. During the pandemic, Danielle Miller assumed the identities of innocent people, then used those identities to get tens of thousands of dollars in PPP loans, buying designer handbags and luxury vacations until it all came crumbling down. NBC's Valerie Castro has the details.
Tonight, the flashy and lavish lifestyle of a social media influencer helping to put her behind bars. Danielle Miller pleading guilty to a $1.5 million fraud scheme, accused of stealing the identities of more than 10 people across the country to obtain COVID-19 relief money, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston. Prosecutors say Miller's social media posts documented her expensive Birkin designer handbags, which if real can cost six figures, excursions on private jets, and visits to fancy hotels, including the Beverly Hills Hotel in California, all funded by the stolen cash meant for COVID PPP loans.
It's probably easier to catch her because she's on social media flaunting it.
The criminal complaint describing a photo of Miller in front of a white Rolls Royce, the distinct hotel behind her. Investigators using the photo to match her to a fake Massachusetts driver's license. That license used to open a fraudulent bank account, eventually funded with tens of thousands of dollars in pandemic-related small business loans.
When you take money from the federal government, it's a felony. So it's a serious charge, a serious indictment, where when we look at actually what she's getting charged with, it's pretty significant.
The charges in this case, 3 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of aggravated identity theft, a combined possible sentence of more than 60 years. Her attorney telling NBC News Miller has accepted responsibility for her role in the offenses as charged. Miller, who has been out on a $100,000 bond since her arrest in 2021, even documenting what some might say is her least fashionable accessory, an ankle monitor.
So this is an individual actually who is flaunting what they've done, and they call themselves, I'm a con artist. They're proud of this, and she's actually using it as another platform to define herself.
While Miller's case is high profile, pandemic-related fraud was and continues to be widespread. The government's Pandemic Response Accountability Committee estimating the losses are in the billions and beyond.
I've said it wouldn't surprise me if at the end of this, it exceeds $100 billion in fraud. It's certainly going to be tens of billions of dollars. The precise number, we just don't know yet.
The victims of scammers like Miller include taxpayers, those whose identities were stolen, and those who needed the money most.
Every penny that went to a fraudster from the unemployment insurance program didn't go to someone who was unemployed. And that's a real tragedy out of this.
All right, Valerie Castro joins us now in studio. Valerie, people who suffered during the pandemic are going to be seeing this story being very upset when they lost their businesses. What is the federal government doing? We know the White House has been trying to get some of this COVID relief money that went to fraudsters back.
Right. So just last week, the White House announced a $1.6 billion plan to combat pandemic-era fraud and recover lost funds. Since the start of the pandemic, more than 1,000 people have been convicted of COVID-related fraud. And, Tom, that number is only expected to go up.
1,000 people, yeah, it's probably a lot more. All right, Valerie, thank you for that. We have some new reporting tonight on Bruce Willis's health battle. His wife now calling out the paparazzi for hounding her husband in public and asking for space after the star's dementia diagnosis. Stephen Romo explains.
I know this is your job, but maybe just keep your space.
Tonight, a concerned plea from the wife of actor Bruce Willis.
For the video people, please don't be yelling at my husband, asking him how he's doing or whatever, the woo-hooing and the yippee-ki-yays. Just don't do it.
Yeah, I'm still here.
The 67-year-old has stepped away from acting after being diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. But his family says his privacy isn't being respected when he's out and about.
How'd I do? Any good?
Willis spent decades as a megastar being pursued by paparazzi cameras. His wife, Emma Hemming Willis, posting a video on Instagram saying that chase continues.
Give him a space. Allow for our family or whoever's with him that day to be able to get him from point A to point B safely. That's my PSA.
She specifically asked for the media not to yell at him when he's out in public, saying she wants to educate people and tabloids after photos recently surfaced in Page Six, Metro UK, and the Daily Mail showing the actor out with friends in California.
This is a devastating diagnosis for him, and I think it's only in their best interest that we leave them alone.
Frontotemporal dementia, or FTD, affects the front and sides of the brain, unlike the more common form of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, which can affect most parts of the brain. Doctors explain Alzheimer's main symptom is memory loss, but FTD patients often experience behavioral changes, meaning their responses can be unpredictable. Hemming Willis previously posting, challenges with communication are just one symptom Bruce faces.
They may overreact, they may lash out, become, kind of grumpy, for lack of better words. He can't verbalize if he's feeling frightened or if it's disturbing his peace. It's quite invasive for him.
The National Institute of Aging points out there is no cure for this disease, and medication use is aimed at reducing agitation and depression.
Watch this space.
Hemming Willis now posting a new video saying she hopes to use this attention to help other patients and their families.
So I'm going to take my 5 minutes and I'm going to turn it into 10 because I'm always going to advocate for my husband. And while I'm at it, I'm going to raise awareness around FTD and for caregivers who are our unsung heroes out there.
Stephen Romo joins us now. And Stephen, watching your story, it sort of brings up this point where you feel for Bruce Willis because of what he's going through, but also you feel for his family because it's tough. It's tough to deal with this personally, and it's tough to obviously deal with it when you're in the public eye.
Yeah, concern for burnout among caregivers is something I wasn't really aware of until doing this story. The expert we talked to saying that these personality changes can be just as hard on the caregiver as it is for the patients to actually experience them. And the Mayo Clinic actually says that depression and anxiety are big risks for caregivers of these patients. One of the many reasons that people are encouraged to talk about it, which is exactly what Bruce Willis's family is now doing.
Okay, Stephen, we appreciate it. Thank you for that story. When we come back, crashing the pod, an SUV slamming into two podcasters while they were recording what one host said seconds before the crash that you will not believe. And Disneyland is about to sound a little different. The classic song that will no longer be played at the park. We'll explain. Stay with us. All right, we are back now with Top Stories news feed, and we begin with the podcast interrupted by a car crash. The whole thing caught on camera. Take a look at this. Nathan Reeves and Alexi Reyes were filming at a coffee shop in Houston when that SUV lost control, smashing into the window where they were sitting. Luckily, no one was hurt. No word yet on what caused that driver to suddenly lose control. The Disney song Zippity Doo-Dah has been removed from Disneyland's daily parade. Park officials confirming to the LA Times that the 1946 track from Song of the South has been replaced by a song from the original Peter Pan. The change comes as the film faces renewed criticisms for its racist imagery and themes. It's the same reason Splash Mountain will be remodeled based on the movie The Princess and the Frog. And Boy Meets Congress. Actor Ben Savage, remember him? Well, he announced he's running for a U.S. House seat. The Boy Meets World star making the announcement on Instagram. He's running for a seat in Representative Adam Schiff's Los Angeles district. Schiff, of course, is seeking California's open Senate seat with Dianne Feinstein retiring. Savage, who filed as a Democrat in January, ran for a West Hollywood City Council seat last year, but lost with just 6% of the vote. Okay, we want to turn now to the latest headline on Ozempic. We've been covering this pretty in depth here on Top Story. It's the diabetes drug we've been telling you about that is now being used by many for weight loss. WW International, formerly known as Weight Watchers, announced it is buying the company for $100 million. Company Sequence. The subscription service helps overweight customers access groundbreaking new medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. The drugs reduce hunger and make people feel full longer, but there have been concerns people are using them who don't really need them. So I want to bring in Dr. Rocio Salas Whalen, a double certified, or board certified, I should say, endocrinologist. Is it double board certified, right? Double board certified. All right, we're learning something here. Went to medical school on Top Story. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here. I ask every doctor that when we do the Ozempic segments, is it dangerous for people who don't have diabetes?
It is not, completely not. This medication is safe for people that don't have diabetes. And the reason is that the effect of a diabetes medication is glucose dependent, meaning that the patient actually has to have diabetes to work as a diabetes medication. But if they don't have diabetes, it doesn't touch the sugar. So it doesn't cause hypoglycemia. So that's why it's safe in non-diabetics.
Anecdotally, I hear from friends and family who take Ozempic. Some people swear by it, especially friends and family that have diabetes, but others who aren't diabetic have talked about some serious side effects, because there are side effects for some people, correct?
The side effects will be irrelevant if they have diabetes or just obesity. The side effects will be the same. And the side effects are very mild if the medication is used correctly, if the medication is prescribed by somebody who has expertise on this medication.
Give me an example of how it's prescribed incorrectly.
Really, there's very few prescriptions that are incorrectly. I think most prescriptions that are out there, at least when it's done by a obesity board certified physician or an endocrinologist, they will have an indication for this medication.
When you say it's done, do you mean the actual injections or when the prescription is written?
When the prescription is written.
Do you think doctors should be administering these shots, or nurses, medical professionals, or can people do it themselves?
People can do it themselves. It's a self-administrative pen. It's very easy. Patients can do it. I mean, this medication is approved for 12 years and above. So I have 12-year-old patients that do injections themselves at home.
I know somebody who's been taking this, and they were older, and they said that they felt like they lost a lot of muscle mass. Along with the weight loss, they lost muscle mass, so they lost strength. If you're of an older age, should you be careful you're taking Ozempic?
Yes, any patient actually, and this is due to any weight loss source, medication or medication. When there's significant caloric deficit, there's the risk always of losing muscle mass. And as we grow older, there's also more risk of just muscle loss just because of age. So it's always key, and this comes again, the expertise of the provider to discuss resistance training, weightlifting, and protein intake in the diet to maintain and preserve muscle during the weight loss process.
How can you lift weights if you're losing the muscle mass, though?
You can. I mean, you're still able to, and you start gradually with 2 days,
little
like
by
in my
little.
Patients, little by little, and protein intake and diet.
Finally, is it dangerous for a company like Weight Watchers to get in the Ozempic Wegovy business? I mean, the whole purpose of Weight Watchers was to watch what you eat, to eat less, to do it on yourself with their diets. Ozempic is a shortcut, if you will, if that's fair.
Definitely not a shortcut. And, you know, weight loss...
Wait, hold on. Why is it not a shortcut?
Because obesity is a chronic disease.
Right.
So it's like diabetes, like hypertension.
But people are also taking Ozempic who aren't obese, and that's not who I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as an obesity specialist, we cannot tell just by looking at somebody who needs this medication or not. And this goes, again, on like using the BMI.
So people that are trying to lose 15, 25 pounds.
We don't know. You don't know their visceral fat, their percentage body fat, their muscle mass. So we have to do like body composition on patients that they may look at the eye that even if they have a normal BMI, they may still benefit from the medication because they may still have prediabetes and they may still be at risk because their visceral fat is high, their percentage body fat is high, and their muscle is low to begin with, what we call is skinny fat, right? So those patients that may look skinny or a normal BMI, BMI, maybe higher body fat and low muscle mass, and they will still benefit from this medication.
Let me give you a scenario in case, because I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with you. If someone says they weigh, let's say someone weighs 115 pounds and they want to lose 15 pounds, you would be okay with giving them Ozempic? That's okay?
Depending on their height.
Okay, on their height. Okay, I'm going to get into too many different scenarios here. But, Doctor, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Coming up, violence escalating in the Middle East. Israeli forces raiding a refugee camp in the West Bank, killing 6 Palestinians. Our Raf Sanchez was there as it was happening. His report next. Turning now to the Middle East and the Israeli raid on a refugee camp in the West Bank that left at least 6 Palestinians dead. This operation, the latest violence as tensions between Israeli settlers and Palestinians continues to escalate. Raf Sanchez is there.
Tonight, Israeli forces taking their hunt for Palestinian militants deep into the occupied West Bank, killing at least 6 Palestinian men during a raid on a refugee camp in the northern city of Jenin.
This is the scene inside the Jenin refugee camp just a few minutes after Israeli forces left. This crowd is coming down the hill, and they want revenge.
Israel says it succeeded in killing a Hamas operative responsible for gunning down these 2 Israeli brothers last month. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu commending his forces, saying, "Our brave warriors operated surgically in the heart of the murderer's den." But the Palestinian Authority condemning the raid as a massacre, and people here mourning the loss of yet more young lives. In Washington, fears of an accelerating cycle of violence.
We remain deeply concerned by the sharp rise in violence in the West Bank, and we continue to urge the parties to take immediate steps to prevent the further loss of life.
Hours before the Jenin raid, an Israeli settler armed with an axe attacking a Palestinian family in their car. Sitting terrified inside the vehicle, 27-year-old nurse Omar Idris, his wife, elderly parents, and little daughter Tia.
Do you believe the person who attacked you will be arrested, will be prosecuted?
Of course not.
Why?
Who is protecting us? Who? Which government protect Palestinians? No one. Just talking. No one protecting Palestinians.
Flying into the chaos, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, today on a surprise trip to Iraq, and tomorrow due to arrive in Israel. His difficult mission, trying to bring American influence to bear and bring some calm to a troubled Holy Land. Secretary Austin will meet Israel's defense minister here in Tel Aviv, and while the Israelis really want to focus on the threat from Iran, the American side is expected to push for steps to end the violence in the West Bank. Tom?
Okay, Raf Sanchez first. Raf, we thank you. When we come back, is AI going to take your job? A new study showing the occupations most at risk due to this new technology. The jobs topping that list, and you may be surprised. Stay with us. Finally tonight, here on Top Story, we usually like to leave you with something positive. Tonight, we're doing something a little different. Is artificial intelligence, AI, coming for your job? I know, doesn't sound great. A team of researchers led by Princeton University linked 10 AI-powered applications like language modeling to 52 human abilities, right? And they found the top 20 occupations they claim could be at risk thanks to this growing technology. The researchers said, quote, the top occupations exposed to language modeling include telemarketers and a variety of post-secondary teachers, such as English language and literature, foreign language and literature, as well as history teachers. That's right, teachers, and even judges made the list as well. For more on all this, I want to bring in Princeton student Edward Tion, who rose to prominence when he developed software to combat the misuse of ChatGPT. It's essentially, he created a program that could let professors know if maybe ChatGPT had written their students' essays. And of course, New York Times tech columnist Kevin Roose, you may remember him. We had a great conversation about what he found with some of the Bing ChatGPT search bot conversations he had. One, of course, being whether the bot was in love with Kevin or not. The conversation took a very strange turn. But anyways, we're going to talk about what's at hand here. Edward, I want to start with you. Since we first talked, ChatGPT has exploded, right, in popularity. People are talking about what it can be done, the positive and the negative. Kevin's article also led to a lot of the conversation. What has changed for you the quickest in the weeks that we first spoke?
Yeah, well, first, thanks so much for having me. I would say one of the biggest shifts we've seen is the shift from completely banning ChatGPT, which was a lot of the first initial approach in both education and beyond, to this recognition that we have to adopt this technology. It's here to stay, but how do we still find the value in human work? So I think that's a shift in mindset.
Kevin, after I spoke to you, I was speaking to a friend of mine who interviews students for universities. And he was telling me about a student who was in high school, a little bit younger than Edward here, but he was using ChatGPT to help people improve their websites by copying code. And essentially, I didn't even know ChatGPT can do that, but now ChatGPT can essentially rewrite codes for different websites, improve people's web pages, a job that probably took a couple of software engineers, or you'd have to hire them at least to redo your website, can now be done instantaneously with ChatGPT. And my mind was sort of blown at how many different facets of our economy are going to be affected by this. What has sort of surprised you in sort of the research and the writing you've been doing on ChatGPT?
Well, I've been looking at this issue of AI and jobs for years. I wrote a whole book about it called Future Proof, about what are the skills that are sort of immune to being replaced by AI. And what's really interesting is if you go back through history, through all of the technological changes we've had as a society since the Industrial Revolution, it's very rare that an entire occupation just disappears overnight. There actually aren't that many examples of that. Instead, what happens is that within every occupation, there are certain tasks and skills that get taken over by machines, and some portion of the workers in those fields are replaced. But it's usually the people who are doing the more robotic parts of that job anyway. And so within every occupation, I think there are going to be people who are displaced because of AI, but it's not necessarily going to be that, all teachers or all doctors become obsolete. It'll be a subset of those teachers and a subset of those doctors who are able to adjust and adapt, and there will obviously be people who can't.
But Kevin, I'd argue that sometimes with technology nowadays and apps, and I get you cover this much more than I do, but there is, and I'll call it the Uber moment, right? When Uber starts to take off, taxi medallions in New York City suddenly lose all their value. And there's sort of this civil war amongst chauffeurs and drivers in the city of New York that expands across the world. My question to you is, do you think the ChatGPT feature is now maybe what Google was for search engines, right? It took what Yahoo was creating, what Alta Vista was creating, what Ask Jeeves was doing, and it took it to a completely new level and made it much more accessible for Americans because it was a better product. Is ChatGPT that AI software that is going to sort of, catapult all of this into the future?
I think it could be. I mean, these large language models certainly are very powerful. And one interesting thing is that this is kind of the reverse of how we expected automation to change jobs. For a long time, the thought, the conventional wisdom was that robots and AI, this was going to be a problem for the working class, for people in manufacturing or trucking. Now, these language models, they're doing white collar work much more effectively. So it may actually be the kind of salespeople and marketers and technical, programmers and other sort of high education, high skill workforces that are disrupted first before the manufacturing workers.
Edward, you're on the front lines of learning about this and developing this. How much of a conversation, when you guys are dealing with all the technology, is done over sort of the ethics of all of this? Because as Kevin's story pointed out, I mean, things can get really weird really fast. The technology is incredible. I think people they're fascinated by it. But I think people also have to take a breath and say, okay, ethically, what are we doing here? And is it right? Does that come up in the classroom at all when you guys are developing these things?
Yeah, I would say there needs to be more and more a focus of ethics on the industry when this technology is adopted. And I would add to the earlier point, when I was building GPT-0 as an AI detector, I was actually using ChatGPT to generate the code I'm writing. Someone pointed out early that's a little bit ironic, but it goes to say that I'm studying computer science and journalism at school. And this computer science work, the technologies are already changing a lot of what we're doing. In journalism, I would say earlier, I was speaking to a bunch of journalists asking me, is this going to replace our jobs? And the immediate answer is no, because there are things like Kevin mentioned, definitive things that ChatGPT will never be able to do, like report news stories, find the truth. But there are things that, hey, it's really good at, maybe getting people started on certain tasks, not so good at finishing the job and doing it right.
Kevin, do you see a scenario where AI creates jobs?
Certainly. I think it already has. I mean, there's a new job title called prompt engineer at some of these AI companies, where you have people who are basically specializing in how to put the right words into the chatbot to get back the right output. So I think this is going to continue. Every technological revolution throughout history has created new jobs in addition to displacing some obsolete jobs. And so I think the big question is, how quickly will the new jobs arrive? Will there be enough of them to support the people who are displaced out of the old jobs? And will they be accessible to people with the skills that they developed in doing the old jobs?
Kevin, before we go, I do want to ask you, there's so much being talked about TikTok and regulation, and I almost feel that our lawmakers probably do have to do that. It is important, but maybe we're a step behind. Is anyone talking about regulation over AI right now?
Yeah, a lot of folks are talking about it. I would say not a lot is currently happening related to AI regulation. There have been a few bills proposed, and there's a congressional AI caucus that talks about these issues. But I think it's fair to be skeptical of that, given how long regulators took to get their arms around something like social media, which is, 20 years old at this point, and we still don't really have robust regulations for that. So
do you think it's necessary, Kevin? Is it something lawmakers should pay attention to?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's going to affect the economy, jobs, but it's also going to affect elections and information flows, and probably become a major, global wedge issue. So I think politicians and regulators that are smart and forward-thinking are already looking at this, and more will continue.
Kevin, Edward, we thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much for joining Top Story tonight. We thank you for watching Top Story. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.